Hi, I'm David Manti with Cannabis Equipment News, and with me today is Jack Naito, president of Luna Technologies. Thank you very much for joining me today, Jack.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So let's start by telling me a little bit about Luna. How'd you guys get your start, and what do you guys do?
Well, I'm gonna go in reverse. What we do is we design and manufacture cannabis extraction equipment. We do hydrocarbon extraction, which is either butane or propane, or some mix of the two, just depending on what our customers like to use. Really, from early on, we went with butane and propane because we wanted to focus on producing high quality craft extracts, and that really pigeonholed us into hydrocarbons. It's the only way you can extract fresh frozen material, and the only way you get live resin products, or pretty much the only way to get high terpene full spectrum. Mm-hmm. And so that's how we ended up on hydrocarbons as a solvent. And then from the beginning, Kyler's the co-founder of the company. We really wanted to, our core goal with this company is to give extractors and give our customers the tools they need to produce those products in a safe and consistent way.
Okay. I mean, safety is something that I definitely hear about the extraction process a lot. What is it that you guys do that, makes the process safer?
Well, the biggest thing that we do is we have an automated system, which it gets extractors out of the dangerous area. Mm-hmm. With any extraction method right now, you're using hazardous materials. So anywhere around the extractor is a hazardous area. The safest thing you can do by far is just to remove the people from that equation. Mm-hmm. So if you have the extraction equipment running in your hazardous area and you have your operators outside of that area, then you've really eliminated that risk. And so a lot of people and a lot of companies like to talk about, there's a lot of other ways that we make the process safer through automation, like safety interlocks or like automatically isolating valves if we detect vapor leaks. But really, I mean, those are kind of sexy things to talk about. But the most important thing we do is just isolating people from the risk.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about your background. The way I understand it is that you were actually an aerospace engineer, right? And then you decided to move to cannabis?
Yeah. So I founded the company in 2016 with an old friend, Kyler Buck. I'm actually going to go back even further. I met Kyler in first grade, which was close to 30 years ago. And, we've been friends ever since. I was doing R&D with Boeing. We're an R&D group that was working on automating some manufacturing processes around specific materials. I started catching up with Kyler in maybe 2014, 2015. He was super excited about cannabis extraction. He's really passionate about the industry, about the product that he was making as an extractor, and he had a lot of issues with the equipment that he was using. So after talking with him a little while, I flew back to Portland, which is where he was working, and he took me through a tour of his business, saw the dispensary, saw his grow, and then saw his extraction. And I don't really know what words best describe seeing his extraction for the first time, but it was a little bit of shock, a little bit of excitement, a little bit of not fear, but it was just a little startling. It's like those old school extraction labs. It's like you're walking into like Frankenstein's laboratory,
Yeah.
It's tubes everywhere, like all these big pressure vessels with 10 hoses coming out of them, going every which way. Like it's impossible to tell what's going on there. And then all his techs they were wearing white lab coats, and they're like running around the lab with their coattails like blowing in the wind. And they're looking in pressure vessels and turning knobs, checking their watch, and then running over across the room to dump dry ice on a cooling coil. It's really just, it was shocking to me because I knew at the time that cannabis was a really profitable industry, and yet the technology for extraction was so far behind.
So what did you say? Did you just say like everyone drop everything and slowly back out of this room.
Oh gosh, I wish. I mean, yeah, Kyler's lab had a lot of. It wasn't a dangerous situation at all. It just
Yeah.
I just saw opportunity there,
Okay.
and so I went back to St. Louis and I put in my 2 weeks notice the next day.
Yeah. That's, I mean, that's exciting. Like, from a lot of the people that I hear designing and developing equipment in the industry, it's a very similar origin story where it's, there was an existing issue. You saw a clear path to better technology. And I mean, it sounds kind of like that's what you did.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I came back to work for Kyler originally just to improve his equipment. I mean, he
Hmm.
had a lot of frictions in his business that were pretty. It was low hanging fruit for us to engineer through. And then really quickly, we started automating the process. At that time, we thought we were going to be automating for his business because we thought everyone was going to be doing it in BHO extraction. This is
Hmm.
maybe 5 years ago now, and 6 months in, no one, no one was getting close to automating. And so we decided to start this other company, Luna Technologies, and then design and manufacture the equipment.
What, since you guys have started, what have been some of your largest challenges, both on the design side and the manufacturing side?
Um, I think some of the biggest challenges initially were we first tried to start with the existing equipment, the equipment that was out there that was
Hmm.
repurposed from brewery parts. It came from some other industries. It really didn't fit the process. And so at first we tried to automate that equipment and make it, just take the existing equipment, make it run on its own. That really, it doesn't, you get a product that works at the end. I mean, you basically replace your techs, but you don't have a better process. So one of the big challenges was just kind of giving up on that, throwing all that design work away, and then starting from a clean slate and saying, if we want the extractor to do X, Y, and Z, how do we get there? And how do we do it in the best way possible instead of how do we modify this equipment to make it do that? So that was a huge challenge.
So, was there anything for you professionally where you went from R&D of an aerospace giant to a startup? Was that challenging for you, or because of Kyler's passion? Was it equally exciting, more exciting?
It was exciting in different ways. I mean, I think at the time, I was more excited to be doing cannabis extraction.
Mm.
Aerospace, like, it's different when you have, I mean, our group probably had $500 million budget or something like that. And
Well,
we were working on projects that wouldn't make it onto airplanes for another 5 to 10 to 15 years. And so it's just a different mindset, a different type of engineering. Lots of people were, I mean, it was cutting edge, but lots of people were stuck in the history of aerospace. Whereas
mm,
you come into cannabis and no one has done anything,
mm.
and you have a lot more design creativity, a lot more freedom to be creative, which is fun. And then you're solving different sorts of problems or the same basic problems, but in a different way.
Yeah.
So exciting for different reasons.
So, I mean, solving new problems, but still the 500 million in R&D budget, right?
Of course, right, right.
So one of the things that you'd mentioned regarding Kyler was his passion, and one of the things that I see a lot in this industry is people are very passionate about it, and they oftentimes have very personal reasons to be in the industry. Sort of was it? Were you feeding off of Kyler's passion, or what makes you passionate about the cannabis industry?
I mean, to be honest, Kyler and I are a good pair because I love cannabis. I really believe in what it does for people. I mean, it improves so many people's lives. But I'm
Mm.
not passionate in it in the same way that Kyler is. But I'm really passionate about the engineering side. I love when our customers get our equipment and they make the products that they want to make, like, or they give us some feedback and we're able to improve their process for them and just let them extract safer and in a more consistent way. Like that's what brings me joy, and making these amazing products is what gives Kyler joy, and that's why when we come together, it's a really nice pairing.
Is the was the first product is the primary product the IO extractor?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the through concept, early design, and development. What was that process like creating the IO extractor?
It was a long and tedious process. Uh, it actually didn't take us too long to get the initial prototype out. But then one of the things, so we wrote software for it. We redesigned the reactor vessel to be a lot easier to load and unload. We ran with two solvent tanks and patented that process to just make the whole recovery process a little more efficient. But that whole piece didn't take too long. We built the first one. We put it in an extraction lab, and then that's where the real development work started to happen, I think. I mean, the thing we didn't see coming at all was that even if you have a piece of automated equipment, um, people like to tinker. And so they're always going to go and say, oh, why is it doing that? I think the pressure should be a PSI more. Let me open this valve. And then that just, it messes with uh, accounting for human interaction is tough. And
Mm-hmm.
so that part of the process took a lot longer than we thought. It was a lot more error messages that try to guide people through what they're doing. So, like, hey, I want to open this valve manually. Let's pop a message, ask why you're doing that, and try to give the extractor, the tech some knowledge while hopefully like preserving the automation.
How do you train that? Do you just say, "Hey, just don't"?
Oh gosh, yeah. A lot of it is that. I mean, yeah, the first 6 months we'd get calls and we just have to say, no, just hit there's a big button that says reset all to auto. Press the
Mm-hmm.
button, let it do its thing. Just give it another 2 minutes and it's gonna do what you want it to do. So like it was hard to convince people to trust the software. And I think that just goes back to the whole history of BHO extraction. Like it is a lot of garage tinkerers who wanna they think they know best, and they're really good at making extracts, and so they want to have a hand in it. And so then we had to rethink how do we let people who creative people still have that creativity with automation. And so then we ended up creating a really robust recipe program where you can create really detailed recipes, and then you walk away once you make the recipe and let the process take over and run it.
Do you also encourage user feedback for possible changes in future iterations?
Oh, definitely. Um, our service and support team, we have a weekly meeting with them and then the engineering team where we just go over any support issues, any open tickets, and then there's a specific like checkbox in that meeting. Does this support issue or could this support issue be solved by an engineering design change?
Mm-hmm.
And then if that box gets checked, it goes over to engineering, and then we start working on, hey, what's the long-term solution for this? And I think having a specific way where customer feedback can feed into your design process is really important. And it's how we stay alive as a company.
Could you describe to me, you said it's easier to load and unload. Could you just describe to me the exact process of using the IO extractor?
Oh yeah. Well, let me first explain the process on Kyler's original system that I saw.
Okay.
You have a you have a few 6-inch tubes. You have a few 6-inch pipes. You take those pipes, you pour biomass into the pipes, feedstock. Usually, you got a guy cramming it in with a big dowel.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go over to your table, pick up your lids, put them on, pick up a bunch of tools, clamp them on, connect a few hoses to each one. Then you start the process.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the process, you spend a long time. It's probably, I don't know, it could be anywhere from 10 to half an hour, 10 minutes to half an hour of downtime between runs. With our extractor, you get a little pop up that says, hey, your run's complete. We've recovered solvent from the reactor. Go ahead and open it.
Mm-hmm.
You open your vessel, pull out your bag of extract, your new one's sitting next to you, put it back in, close the lid, walk outside the extraction room, and press the start button.
Mhm. Okay. Uh, so one of the things I always like to talk to engineers about is how the design never stops. So how and sometimes it's difficult, like when you go to market with a product, you don't just see a product that's going to solve a lot of problems. You see a product that still has a lot of things that you want to fix. So how do you decide what to go to market with versus, what is going to be a feature on a future iteration?
Yeah, I think if you asked most of the people at our company,
Hmm.
they would tell you that I think that products should never go to market, that
Yeah.
they're never ready.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, that's like you said, that's just my nature as an engineer.
Hmm.
But the real answer is that there's some tipping point where you've solved enough of the problems that you have a product that will create value for your customer, and that's when it's ready to go to market. And there's always going to be iterative changes. We're constantly improving the equipment as we go. We're pushing software updates to customers, usually quarterly or so. But at some point, if it's valuable to the customer, then it's ready to be sold.
What what size operations are you in? Are you more focused on mom and pop shops, or are you on some of the larger grow operations?
Um, I'd say we have a couple mom and pop shops. Just the price point of our equipment is, especially for BHO equipment, it's at the upper end of their budgets.
Hmm.
Most of our operations are either third-party processors who are doing mostly tolling, or vertically integrated places with pretty large grows. We do about, or one IO extractor will process 300 to 400 pounds a day, and so
Hmm.
that's a pretty large grow operation to feed that.
Hmm.
And then especially when you start putting multiple units out. So yeah, it's a range of I mean it's mostly vertically integrated companies who have a very large grow or third party processors.
What's the typical ROI on an extractor?
That's a really tough question. I mean, look, if you have sales channels set up, if you have your supply chain set up, um, it could be as good as a few months. I'm just really hesitant to say things like that, especially because in this in cannabis industry, especially. I mean, we get promotional information from our competitors that has ROI of like a few days, which is you can't sell you can't sell people on that. It doesn't work that way in real life. So we try to be really upfront with our customers or with our prospective customers about what the actual startup time of our equipment is, about what it really takes uh, to nail down your supply, because that's really important. I mean, garbage in, garbage out, as with anything, and then also figure out places to market it.
I mean, I hear that a lot where like that flyer gets a lot of product in the door, and it's shortly thereafter that it winds up collecting dust in the corner.
Right, right, yeah.
So, are you typically at what point do people find your product? Are they looking to replace old equipment that they've been trying to retrofit or sort of make work, or are they new operations that are kind of coming to you, starting from the ground floor?
It's probably somewhere around 50-50. I mean, a lot
Hmm.
of new businesses, especially in new states, we really believe that hydrocarbon extraction is, I mean, it's the only way to get top shelf products.
Hmm.
And so we really try to help prospects in new states understand that, yes, producing a distillate is going to sell really well at first in the first 6 months, first maybe 18 months that a state goes legal. Consumers aren't very discerning. They just want the cheapest way to get THC. But a year or so in, they're going to shift their preferences toward more high quality, and that's live resin typically. And so we have a lot of new market customers who are looking to just differentiate themselves right off the bat. And then we have a lot of existing businesses who are either moving away from other extraction methods because, again, they want to create that high quality product, or they're looking to pair their ethanol or CO2 equipment. So like a lot of our customers they're extracting a really terpene rich product from our extractor, and then mixing that with the easier, cheaper to produce distillate to get a really high quality vape pen.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How do you design your equipment for maintenance and cleaning? There's not a lot of, there's no federal standards out there, so it's kind of the Wild West in terms, but it sounds like a lot of people are going food quality. Is that what you guys approach?
Yeah. We're lucky to have our operations director came from semiconductor and pharmaceutical manufacturing. So on the pharma side, he's really familiar with GMP, and he's setting us up to be ready for that when it comes into play. We've had a few requests from customers on that side, but really it's tough because, like you said, there's no federal guidance. I mean, until someone says you need to follow these GMP standards, then it's really up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to plan ahead. Our equipment is, if you said you need GMP compliance tomorrow, we'd be ready to go. And then on the maintenance side, that's kind of a constant improvement type of situation where a lot of our design feedback or a lot of customer feedback comes down to, hey, we need easier wrench access to this fitting because we're taking it off once a month and it's just impossible to get to. And then the automation side also allows us for some preventative maintenance. We're doing some pretty standard preventative maintenance. It should be standard on all equipment. It's not quite, but things like we're recording and measuring all the time that our pumps are running. So we can actually tell operators ahead of time that, hey, you're approaching your 1,000-hour maintenance cycle. Please prepare for this. You've got 100 hours until that happens. You got 50 hours until that happens. Okay, it's tomorrow. Get ready for it.
Yeah.
And then also we use molecular sieves to dry our gas stream. Those also need to be regenerated. So it's again measuring the time that we actually have valves open to those and that we have vapor flowing through. So we know pretty much exactly when they need to be changed out.
For those people that are unfamiliar, could you talk a little bit about what GMP compliance is?
Yes, I'm not our compliance guy, so might be a little vague on this. GMP compliance is good manufacturing practices. It's required. It depends on the industry on who's requiring it. It might be required by a government regulating body. It might be required by like an industry group. And it's hard to explain to our customers who ask for it because GMP it's not just one set of rules that say you need this surface finish, you need this data logging, and you need this amount of cleaning. GMP varies from industry to industry and from product to product. So like GMP compliance for making, I don't know, Xanax is going to be different than it is for making cannabis when it does come into our industry. Or it's going to be different for isolates than it will be for full spectrum pens. And so GMP is a really big space. And until we get some more guidance from outside, from regulating bodies, it's hard to know exactly which way it's going to go.
Do you sell primarily in North America or do you sell the product worldwide?
We are only in North America by design. I mean, we've had a lot of interest in Central America, a little bit in Europe, but right now we're a small company and we really pride ourselves on the support that we provide to our customers. Mm-hmm. Once we start getting into different languages or even just, different, very different time zones, it's a lot harder for us to provide that support. So we're just not quite ready for that. It'll happen eventually. I'd really love to start selling to Europe because they're really missing the entire hydrocarbon side right now. But we're not going to do that until we're ready. And we know we can provide good support for our customers.
Where are your largest footprints in North America?
Mostly on the West Coast. West Coast and now the western side of Canada. I think it's really where the hub of cannabis is right now.
What are your expectations with 5 new states legalizing in one form or another this last election?
Well, first off, I'm really excited about it. I mean, it's really great for our industry as a whole. It's really great for our company. We're definitely going to be, we had a meeting a few weeks ago with the sales team just to talk about how we're going to be entering those markets. But again, for us, it means that the education side is really important. Going into places where people are unfamiliar, they don't have a lot of experience with cannabis. It really takes a lot of uh, it takes a lot of work to make sure our customers are successful. And
Hmm.
that goes for any piece of extraction equipment. I mean, it's just people are jumping in with a lot of money and not a lot of experience. And so, again, that just goes back to the customer support side.
Uh, Speaking of money, how has given the regulatory realities in the industry, how has sort of the financing sort of side of the business worked for you guys? I understand that a lot of manufacturers run into difficulties when it comes to, just capital expenses, not only just getting financing for the business, but also people that are trying to buy the equipment.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough. I mean, we've had to kind of strangle ourselves a little bit. Just we've been bootstrapping the company, which has been slow. We've looked at bank financing; it's impossible, as I'm sure everyone in this industry knows. Um, just on a logistics side, we've lost bank accounts before, which just takes you down for a couple weeks. And then, but the bigger issue for us now is, like you said, the equipment financing side. We're always looking for new financing partners who can offer better rates for our equipment to our customers, and it's really tough. Um, it's hard when in another industry, if your customers have been operating businesses outside of cannabis, they're expecting like maybe a 8 to 12% rate, worst case, on financing equipment, and then they come in and we hook them up with one of our financing partners, and now all of a sudden they're looking at 20 or 20, 20 to 25% even. So it's really hard. What it means is that usually they'll just go back to their investors and ask for more money, which is more time. A lot of projects have just been on hold for, I can think of one customer who, they put a deposit down and then it took them another year because they just had financing kind of fall through one after the other, or they were promised rates of 8%. And then when it came time to sign the docs, all of a sudden, hey, no, we got to do 18%.
Mm.
So it's really hard. We've been trying to find a creative way to really partner with an equipment financing firm, but it's tough. I mean, there is higher risk in our industry. So
Hmm. Well, and there's the other side of that where you have, I've talked to other manufacturers where you have customers that'll just come with like a lump sum of cash, and it's like I can't do anything with this, like.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a joke around with the sales guys that, oh yeah, I got a customer who's got a wheelbarrow. He's pushing his wheelbarrow of cash up from California.
Yeah.
But it's also it's hard to turn those people away,
Oh
and
yeah.
but you have to.
Mhm. Uh, so tell me a little bit about the new color remediation column and the partnership with Media Bros.
Yeah, color remediation has been around for a little while. For those people who don't know, the color of the final extract is pretty important to the quality. Uh, I mean, it does have an effect on the actual experience of the product, and it has a huge effect on just how saleable that product is. Sitting on the shelf, it's
Mhm.
nice if it looks pretty.
Mhm.
So color remediation are different. It's a broad range of products that are consumable filter medias that will separate some of those chlorophylls and other
Mhm.
components that create the dark color. We partnered with Media Bros. We hooked up with them maybe about a year ago to first start testing their product. We like it a lot because one of the biggest problems with these medias is that they're a very fine particulate size. You just need the fine particulate size to get the surface area to do the filtering. And what that means is that imagine you have like a very fine like silt where you pour water on top of, you got silt in the bowl, pour water on top, it doesn't really soak in, or it soaks in really slowly. When you put that into an extraction process and you need to flow your solvent and your extract through that, there's a huge pressure drop across it, and it slows down the process. We don't really have the pumps in this industry that can efficiently push through that. And so Media Bros, when we hooked up with them, like I said, about a year ago, they had a different media that wasn't out on the market, bigger particle size that allows us to flow through very quickly, which means when we provide that for our customers, it really doesn't slow down the extraction time. So if they're looking at a 50-minute run without CRC, they're maybe at 50 to 55 minutes with CRC, which is really important.
What could you tell me a little bit about how COVID-19 and the pandemic has affected your business?
Yeah, like everyone, our operations are different. We try to keep everyone as remote as possible. That's hard when you run a manufacturing business. One of the challenges we ran into is that we had our engineering staff remote, but our manufacturing staff, on the production floor, and you have to have some feedback going between that. So, some unique challenges, I think. We're trying to, like everyone, we had some difficulty navigating federal guidance plus state and local that all vary a little bit. But I think we figured it out to a certain degree, like most businesses have at this point. And then we did take a bit of a hit as soon as the pandemic hit. Cannabis retail sales went through the roof, and all the talk in the industry was, hey, cannabis is doing great. But once it comes back to our business or equipment manufacturers, I talked to a couple other equipment manufacturer owners who said the same thing, that their sales slowed down quite a bit, and our sales slowed down quite a bit because we rely on, or our customers rely on financing. And so if that's coming from a private investor, everyone kind of went on hold and just said, hey, the market's tanking. We don't know what's going to happen with regulation. Are we going to be able to sell products anymore? So everything paused for about 3 to 4 months. It picked back up again end of the summer. There was a lot of pent up energy. People who wanted to make purchases but couldn't. And so, it's come back for the most part.
Okay. What are your expectations for the next year?
Good question. I expect that the cannabis market or the extracts market will continue to kind of separate between, I like to think of it as like commodity products versus craft products, or, like Coors, Bud Light versus micro brews. We have a lot of customers who are making both of those products. They're making like a lower quality distillate product, and then they're also trying to do like higher end products. I think that businesses will start to focus, our equipment, we can make a crude oil, a really highly refined crude oil, to go to distillate really quickly, but it's really not what our equipment's designed to do. And so I hope we'll start to see some specialization where we get some people making really high quality products, and then some companies who are just cranking out the lower end, the cheaper and more accessible products.
What have been some of your biggest challenges from the design side? What are you hoping to, what are some of the new products that you're currently working on, or changes to the IO extractor that have since eluded you, but you're hoping to knock out in the next 5 years?
The easy one is just scale. 3 years ago or 4 years ago, no one was producing more than 400 pounds a day. Now there are lots of companies doing that. So just rethinking the equipment, how to scale up really efficiently. We're pretty far through the design phase on that. Really just kind of waiting for a few small design reviews. But what we're really, really excited about is a new process that we're working on for CBD extraction. It should work for THC also. We've been working on it for probably 18 months, more on the chemistry and process recipe side. Now we're moving on to the equipment design side. So we should be, I hate to tease it, but we should be releasing that, or unveiling the process pretty soon. And that's really going to be the future of our company, moving into it's more specialized CBD and THC extraction, creating products that don't really exist right now and that we think there's a lot of consumer demand for.
Okay. One of the things I liked about the bio that you sent me was that it said when you were working in aerospace, you were in love with the work, but less enamored with the bureaucracy. So are things better now?
Oh God, things are so much better. I had a vacuum manifold. I had this part that would fit on my desk at work. I had to ship it. I was in St. Louis. I had to ship it to South Carolina, just to another office. I was walking out the door with my corporate card to go to FedEx to put it in the mail. Someone, as I was opening the door, someone stopped me and said, "Hey, you can't ship that with FedEx." It then took me about I because I'm an engineer, a nerdy engineer, I logged all my time and everyone else's time working on shipping this thing. It took about 20 hours of everyone's time to get this thing to ship to one of our other sites.
Yeah.
So yeah, running a small company, I mean, there's zero. The only red tape is red tape that I create.
Right.
It makes the design process much faster. I mean, we get things from concept to prototype in a matter of months instead of years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a ton of fun, and I love it.
No, coming from a similar like corporate background to a smaller business now, I feel the same way where it's just like we need to have a meeting about that to set up the next meeting before we can make a decision.
Right.
It never worked well for me. Did the part make it to the other site?
It did. Yeah. It was successful. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's Kyler's perspective on this, where he kind of, seems like he started a small operation and now he's got, you're an aerospace engineer, you have a pharmaceutical professional there. I mean, how has his business changed as a result of your guys' partnership?
I think at the time that I came back to work with him, he was having trouble scaling the business. He was having a lot of trouble. He'd hire a new employee, he'd get him trained up on extraction. Either he'd walk away from the process and things would kind of go to shit, like product quality would tank, they wouldn't be opening the valve at the right time, or they'd be really good at it and then they'd take off and go work for another company for more money, or they'd start their own business. And so I think the way Kyler's business has changed is that it's scaled pretty rapidly. I think their business has 4 of our units right now. They're running 24/7. Yeah, and he'd be the first person to tell you that our extractor is what has allowed them to scale that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it sounds like an exciting time for Luna, and I really appreciate you taking the time to tell me a little bit about it, man.
Yeah, thanks so much, David. Really enjoyed this.
Is there anything that we might have left out, or anything in particular that you want to make sure the CEN audience knows about Luna?
Yeah, I'd say just keep on the lookout for. I wish I could give you more information now. Love to get on another call with you later once we release this. But the new product that we're working on is going to be really cool. It's really going to change the way CBD is processed and the types of CBD products that you can make. So yeah, leaving you with a teaser.
No, that's a solid tease, man. We're gonna totally use that to promote the next one. Well, thank you very much for taking the time, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.